Welcome to Hidden Wisdom. Hidden wisdom exists to initiate truth seekers into the mysteries, gently guiding them toward a lived experience of the divine that awakens and transforms faith without dismantling family or community. This work is about faith renovation and expansion, learning how to inhabit your spiritual foundation more fully, allowing for depth, relationship, and wisdom to grow over time. I'm your host, Megan Farner. Here we explore Christ-centered esotericism, spiritual discernment, embodied wisdom, and the path of initiation, so your faith can mature, deepen, and become more alive. If you're seeking more and wanting to grow with care and integrity, you are in the right place. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Hidden Wisdom. I am so grateful to be joined today by Meredith Oke. Meredith is the host of the Quantum Biology Collective podcast and founder of a fast-growing nonprofit bringing quantum biology to the forefront of health and wellness. After walking away from burnout and conventional answers, Meredith discovered the overlooked science of how light, circadian rhythms, and energy shape our vitality. Today, she translates that science into practical strategies for women to reclaim energy, agency, and joy, which are three things that we all desperately are wanting to reclaim. So, Meredith, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, Megan, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here and to connect with you and your beautiful audience. And I can't wait to chat.
Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit more about you? It sounds like you have a really, I think, relatable story, and I'd just love to hear how it is that you have come to this place.
Yes. So this phase of my journey, I don't need to do the whole journey, but I'll do this phase of my journey. Started with something that I know. I was listening to your podcast before this, and a guest you had on recently was like chronic fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what brought me into the world that I'm living in now in terms of what I'm doing professionally. And that was that I had 2 children and a new baby. And I did not have enough energy to get through my day. And the feedback that I got from the doctor was, your labs are fine, so you're fine. And I'm like, well, I'm glad the labs are fine, but I'm not okay. But there was nothing. They're just like, no, you're tired, right? Everyone just kept saying that, like, oh, you're tired. Of course you're tired. Of course you're tired. And when, my first 2 children were, I had like the baby toddler combo that so many people have, and then the toddler preschool combo. And in those years, I was genuinely sleep deprived, and I knew what it felt like to be tired because you hadn't slept enough. And that kind of fatigue is remedied by getting enough sleep. Chronic fatigue is a kind of tiredness that doesn't go away no matter what you do. And I really like to differentiate that for women, because so often we override that fatigue signal and we just push ourselves. And it's actually a very early important sign our body is saying something's not right. Like fatigue is the earliest red flag for so many other chronic conditions. And so I just think, from a listening to our body and disease prevention perspective, I really like to make sure women understand that. So for example, I would sleep 10 hours a night and wake up tired and not have enough energy to get through the day. So that started me sort of down this rabbit hole where I am now with light and circadian rhythm and understanding a completely new paradigm of health that is just becoming creeping into the public consciousness. It's very early days, though.
Yes, you were a forerunner for sure. Yeah, I really appreciate this conversation too. So on our channel, we talk a lot about divine masculine and divine feminine energy, and that these are both things that we all have, and that the balance of that is very important, especially for women. Our nervous system tends to accommodate us needing to be in that divine feminine energy, which is a state of flow. It is a state of rest. But unfortunately, so many of us have so many demands, and we really are unaware of the importance of consciously and intentionally resting. Or we have a lot of blocks to that, right? Where we have guilt or we have shame, we have like internal conditioning that prevents us from resting. That when we are living in that divine masculine energy too much, that can produce this type of response, right? Of these chronic concerns. Was that the case for you? Do you feel like you were just doing so much that it was hard to catch up, or what did that look like for you?
Yes. And I think I was definitely leaning into that, just go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, there were aspects to my physical environment that were harming my health that I didn't realize. And so recovering from chronic fatigue was a journey of like learning a little bit about my environment, and then learning a little bit more about myself, and then a little bit, habits and routines, and a little bit about myself. Um, it's funny you say that, because as part of this journey, I was working with an integrative physician who recommended that I wear an Oura ring, which is like one of those wearable devices that like tracks all your stuff, tracks your sleep, and your steps, and your, all your things. And I was like, first of all, I don't like tracking things. I have a talk about divine feminine. I have a very intuitive, approach to things that often gets labeled ADD. I think it's just more of a mismatch between how I operate and what's required in our culture.
Right.
That being said, I don't like measuring things in a detailed way. It's not my favorite. So I kept putting it off. And then I also realized I was rejecting the Oura ring because I thought I knew what it was going to say. And I thought the feedback I was going to get was, you're not exercising enough. You're not. And because I didn't have a fitness routine at the time. Anyway, I capitulated. I put the Oura ring on. After 2 days, it gave me a message. And the message was, you didn't have enough restorative time today. You're not going to have enough energy tomorrow. And I was like, oh.
The exact opposite. Right? Wow.
So I had been really skeptical of this technology, and it ended up giving me this very profound insight that I had really needed. So I was like, okay, thanks. And then I stopped wearing it, but I did put the restorative time. I've been, it's,
you got what you needed
here
out of
and
it.
there, but
yes. So that's huge. And what a great experience to have, of like just being exposed to our blind spots, right? Where what we're raised with tells us that it should be one thing, and sometimes it's exactly the opposite, right? This is a really challenging thing, I think, because I think I see women who are becoming more aware of like, okay, I need rest. I need that restorative time. And yet that seems like such a hard thing for us to get. Can you talk a little bit about like, how would you speak to a woman that's like, yes, I know I need more rest. I don't know how to do that with my life right now. Like, what would you say to her?
Yeah, well, for me, my pattern was do everything and then collapse.
Yeah.
So it was like, go, 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 push, 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 and then like collapse in front of Netflix at the end of the day or whatever. And the discipline that I needed to learn, because I think it is a discipline, is to build in short rest periods throughout the day. And it just felt like, no, I just want to get it all done. Like, I just want to do all the things.
Yes.
And then poof. And I don't like that feeling of coming back from a rest back into the flow of it.
Yeah.
I find that. But at the end of the day, that is what is required. And what I also realized is it doesn't have to be like a whole big thing. I could just go out and stand in the sun for a few minutes in my bare feet, weather permitting, and take some deep breaths and chill out for like 3 minutes and have a little bit of a reset. So I think that's one piece is like just building it in. I do little things like on days where I have a lot of driving for activities or whatever, like I listen to things in the car that I find fun.
Yeah.
Like for your moms, it might be this podcast, right? Like I'm like, oh, and then instead of it feeling drudgery, it feels a little bit fun.
So I'd love to talk a little bit more about what you discovered. Specifically, your bio talks about light, circadian rhythms, and energy in general. Those are 3 topics that I love and I find fascinating. And of course, they have a deeply feminine connection to a lot of those things. So can we talk a little bit first about the overlooked science of light and how is that relevant to this conversation?
Yeah, so light turned out to be, for me, like the big missing piece. I had been on a very deep spiritual journey, psychological journey. I had done childhood work and all kinds of things. And I had, got to a good place with being able to master my thoughts and not believe every single thought that floated through my head, and be intentional about how I viewed the world and myself and other people. Like I was like, I did so much. I did so much work. And I was like, it's just going to translate into everything, me being healthy in every way. And it didn't. But the gift of doing that work, is obviously unfolds forever and continues forever. But one of the big pieces of it was my mindset, right? And I'm like, I just refuse to accept if something sucks. I'm like, this can't be the end. It just means I haven't found the next thing. Yeah. So when this chronic fatigue came, it was really just what I realized. It was an opening door for me to understand my body better, understand my biology better. I had spent a lot of time on my mind and my spirit because I'm more comfortable there. I was less comfortable with my physical self and paid less attention to it. So I was baseline healthy. Like we ate pretty healthy food. There was nothing crazy going on. So when I went down this chronic fatigue rabbit hole and tried all of the things, it was like, there were no clear answers because most of it seemed like I was doing things okay. And everyone, all of the feedback was always like food, so I was constantly trying to micromanage my food and my family's food because my daughter was having some health issues as well, or some symptoms. And I remember I ordered a spiralizer, which is like this thing that you put zucchini in and you turn the handle and it turns into the zucchini into noodles. God bless anyone who's mastered the zucchini noodles.
For real.
But I was sitting looking at this thing that I ordered off the internet because some blogger was like, it's really great and your kids will love it. It's just like spaghetti. And I was staring at it. I'm like, it's not like spaghetti. They will not love it. I don't know what I'm going to do with this machine. I don't want to eat this. I want real food. I want real spaghetti. And I just had this moment of kind of despair where I'm like, is this it for the rest of my life? I have to be thinking about this every day in order just to maybe only need 1 nap instead of 2. And I just sat still and I said, okay, I just thought to myself, okay, I said a prayer. I have, consumed so many podcasts and read so much and have listened to so much wisdom over the years. There must be something I've overlooked that could help. And I got really quiet and my mind flashed to an interview with a doctor who was talking about light. And I remembered watching it and I remembered thinking, oh, that's interesting. And then I remember moving on. So I went back from that place of, the gift of desperation. I went back and rewatched it from a place of okay, I have tapped out on option, and so is everyone I can think of to ask. And I watched this interview from that place, and every minute of it, I was like, oh no. And it was in some ways a little devastating because I was seeing ways that I had been making everything worse through just simple choices where I just didn't know any better. But also it was a hugely optimistic moment because I'm like, oh, there's all this stuff I could be doing besides spiralizing zucchini.
Right.
And it was a lot to do with light. So, for example, I had been reading my iPad before bed. And everyone now knows not to do that, but this was like 10 years ago. we hadn't quite grokked onto that yet. I didn't really pay attention to how much time I spent outside, what time I went outside. I didn't think about, what kind of light was hitting my eyeballs through the evening and before I went to sleep. And all of these things are so important. And I try to find a way to communicate it where it's like, this is not like a health tip. It turns out that our biology runs on light. We are programmed by light. So not looking at your phone before bed or not having bright LED overhead lights on in the nighttime is as important as drinking pure water and eating healthy food, maybe more so. This is so unbelievably fundamental and so misunderstood or not well understood that it completely transformed my life. It takes time to kind of onboard a new paradigm, a new idea. So I'm like, oh, okay. And then, that helped. And over time, as I leaned into this way of viewing the world, I did, and with the help of a really good integrative physician, the one who made me get norming, I resolved the chronic fatigue. But I came away with like an incredibly profound understanding of how important our light and darkness cycles are. And for me, it started physically, but there's absolutely an emotional, psychological, and spiritual aspect to it as well, which you've covered well on this podcast.
Yeah, thank you. No, I so appreciate that. I think that's really relatable, right? To be like, I feel like I'm checking all the boxes. What could I possibly be missing? And light is it's such a, like, it is our paradigm, right? Like we live in the light. And so we don't even think about it a lot of the times. And I think we've also probably received some programming that makes it feel less important than it is, right? Or even scary. Like I know there's a lot of what I would call pseudoscience, frankly, to suggest like that the sun is really dangerous for you, right? And I think that the opposite is true. Can you talk about the sun and what sunlight does for us?
Yes, the sun is life. The sun is the source of all life on Earth, including ours. And the demonization of it is so far beyond what is warranted in terms of the risks of UV exposure and skin cancer. You do wonder how that happened and why that happened. Because
we believe in conspiracies here. All sorts of heresy and conspiracies. We're here for it.
Okay. Well, you do have to wonder because like we understand that for everything else, like we wouldn't buy a plant and then put it in a closet with a laptop.
Yeah.
As its light source and expect
when you put it like
to
that.
thrive, right?
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
If we would you go to the pet store, there's all these special light bulbs like, oh, you're getting a fish, it needs this kind of light. You're getting a reptile, it needs that kind of light. It's understood. And like when it comes to the light that we put ourselves under, everything is based on energy efficiency and nothing is based on biological support.
Ted, when you say it like that, I'm like, oh, well, that really makes it really clear when you put it that way. So what does it do for our bodies when we are exposed?
It basically controls everything. So if let's start in the morning when we go outside. I think, there's been some really influential people in the culture who have made it quite well known that going outside and getting morning light is important to our health. And, I'm very grateful to the people who've championed that. Like the podcaster Andrew Huberman comes to mind. Like he's done a really lovely job of really putting that out there because that is, I would say, like the absolute fundamental element to all of it is that morning sunlight. So why? So The morning light has a completely different texture, temperature range than in, say, the light at noon. And the light that comes in the morning is specifically programmed to turn on our hormones, to turn on our daytime hormones and turn off our nighttime hormones, to signal to our bodies, oh, it's time to eat food and digest it. It's time to do things. It's time to be active. And so having a restful night's sleep starts first thing in the morning. So if the first morning light that hits our eyeballs is a phone, the first light signal that we get is, oh, it's noon. And so we're missing all of those instructions, all of the instructions for all of the things to like wake up our body are not in that signal. And so even if we get the light later, we've interrupted it and we've thrown chaos. So then the light outside changes all throughout the day, like minute to minute. It's got a different variation than it did the minute before. And that information, our biology is reading it. So it's like if you've ever been doing self-checkout at the grocery store and like you scan the wrong barcode, there's like a barcode for that store and then a barcode like from the factory and you scan the wrong one. It's like, That is the light coming out of the man-made devices, because when we made these devices, we didn't think about this at all. Whereas when we're outside, it's like ding, ding, our body's like, okay, ding, ding. And so everything that we do to interrupt our eyes predominantly, but also our skin from interacting with the sun is throwing our body into a little bit of chaos. So that's going to affect our metabolism. That's going to affect our mood. That's going to affect our sleep, which bad sleep it can be traced back to the beginning of all chronic illness. It affects all of those things. And then by the same token, the sunset, your body's like, oh, okay, now it's time to start to take things down a notch. It's time to chill out. And then once it's dark, that signal is like, okay, turn off digestion, turn off cortisol, like turn off all of these things that we need to be active during the day. So again, if it starts to get dark outside and then we come in and turn on all of the brightest lights and open up the screen at maximum brightness, or even watch TV without blue blocking glasses, again, we're throwing that all out of balance. So if we think about how often we do that, if we're not conscious of it, phone and then outside and then inside, and then maybe we're outside during sunset, but then we come back in and turn on, it's like we're causing a state of chaos inside of our body, which is, the end state of that is wrecking our mitochondria, which are the foundation of health.
Right. So what other symptoms, obviously chronic fatigue is a big one. What other symptoms might be indicative that we're getting the wrong kind of light or we're not getting light at the right times?
All of them.
Oh.
Dysregulated circadian rhythm can be traced back to everything with the exception of like a rare genetic, like a true genetic disordered disease. But all chronic illness is a downstream effect of our mitochondria not functioning properly. And circadian dysregulation trashes our mitochondria. So it will show up differently in different people. So one person might get chronic fatigue, someone else might get type 2 diabetes, someone else might be on a slow burn towards cancer, right? Like the individual response differs depending on a whole, bunch of genetic and epigenetic factors and where our mitochondria are weak. Someone else might be on the train to early onset Alzheimer's, right? Like it shows up in all different ways, but healthy mitochondria are the fundamental. And so when our mitochondria are healthy and happy, then sometimes then we are less likely to turn on maybe the genes for some of those diseases that we might be prone to genetically, or to just create a disease from scratch. So circadian regulation is a fundamental layer of health to everything. I mean, to answer your question more specifically, fatigue is the first symptom for a lot of the time, but it really can be anything: anxiety, depression. You might say there's mold in somebody's house, and one person might get exposed to that mold and like have a terrible autoimmune response. Someone else might get exposed to the same mold and like be kind of okay because their body is in balance.
Again, something that I just wouldn't even think about as being an underlying factor in all of those conditions. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So let's talk a little bit more about shifting our patterns, right? Obviously, you talked about being exposed to dawn and to dusk, being mindful of the kind of light that we're experiencing in the evening. What are some of the other just like practices that you have incorporated for yourself and with your clients that you have seen make really significant shifts?
Yeah, and so there's lots, and they're pretty easy. And I do want to address the fact that I'll never forget, I was explaining this to a mom on the playground once, and she had like, a toddler. She was like in it. She had a toddler and a preschooler or something. And she just looked at me and she was like, another thing I have to worry about.
Oh, yeah.
So I do understand that, there's people sitting there going, what? Now I have to think about that in addition to the microplastics and the this and the that.
Yeah.
So what I want to say is two things. First of all, light is so fundamental that regulating your circadian rhythm will actually make you more resilient to all of those other toxins that we worry about all the time. Right. We become better at detoxing. We become better at getting rid of stuff. Like there's a whole cascade effect that happens. So circadian rhythm is like supportive of living in a world with all of the other things we were told to worry about. And the second thing is that it has such a huge upside that it really is good news, right? It's like, okay, if I take care of this, I'm actually possibly, preventing the worst types of symptoms if my child has ADD down the road or whatever, right? Like it's a prevention strategy against a lot of the things that we had, that we've been taught to worry about.
Yeah.
So that being said, the first thing I would say is people are like, oh, but I know for me, I like to watch shows at night with my husband and my daughter, like we have shows that we watch together. And so I have a basket of blue blocking glasses. So if you've ever seen photos on the internet of people wearing those orange lensed glasses, they work. And we put those on when we watch TV at night. Everyone's house is filled with overhead LEDs. And that's the other thing I hear from moms. They're like, oh, I listened to your podcast and it makes total sense, but I just can't wrap my head around replacing all my light bulbs. It seems like such a nightmare. You don't have to replace your light bulbs. You just don't have to turn them on.
Yeah.
So it's like we have, like one lamp per room in rooms that we use in the evening. And in those lamps, we have an incandescent bulb, or there's some really nice like circadian optimized light bulbs on the market now that have like enough light to see, but it's much gentler. It's much yellower than the really bright LEDs. And so you don't need to change every bulb in your house. Just get a few like that. And then, for laptops, there's software you can download. There's a software program called Iris that can make your screen red or orange. So I have it on right now.
Oh, cool.
And on daytime mode. So I think it looks normal. And then if I'm shutting my computer down and it turns off and my computer goes back to factory settings, I'm like, oh my God, it is so bright. Like give it a try. But we have adapted to such an insane level of brightness in a very narrow range of color, like beaming right into our faces. And we've just normalized it. And once you get used to the other way, you're like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So those are the main things. I think the toughest one for people is the phone. You can put it on redshift, which helps, but it's still not enough because the light coming out of these screens, like what it does is it suppresses our melatonin. So the darkness signals to our body to start making and releasing melatonin, because it actually turns out we're making melatonin all the time. But the darkness signals to our body to make it extra and to start using what we already have. And melatonin is what cleans our brains while we're sleeping. So that's why, for example, I would sleep 10 hours and still be tired, because it was like running the dishwasher with like a trickle of cold water. Like it was on, it was working, but it wasn't really getting the job done. That's what my sleep was like, because I was exposing myself to bright light before bedtime.
Wow. Such simple things that make such a huge
it's
difference.
super simple. And there's, for kids too, there's like little night lights you can get that are motion detector, and they're red. So like we have that in my daughter's room. And so, I know, because I know sometimes parents are like, oh, my child likes to have a light on. So that is enough light that they don't feel like they're in the dark, and then it turns off once the child stops moving. And that redness doesn't have that same disruptive tendency. You can also get little reading lights that you clip on your book. So you could read before bed and not disrupt your circadian rhythm. There's lots of little things to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. It just, the whole conversation just has me thinking about the wisdom of our ancestors, that like we have grown in so many ways, and in other ways we've really isolated ourselves from just the natural things that were just organic to, and are organic to life, right? But we put ourselves in these climate controlled places all the time with these fake lights and dirty water and all this stuff. And then no wonder that we're so sick. And sometimes I think the answer is just stripping away these things and reconnecting with the simplicity of what life was like for thousands of years. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. No. I mean, Megan, I think you've totally connected to the core wisdom of all of this, which is that it's not that we need to do all of these things to stay healthy. It's that we've distanced ourselves from nature, and we are nature. And so you're exactly right. We're just returning to our ancestral way of living. So people are like, oh, you have to buy all these gadgets and whatever. I'm like, well, you don't. Like if you, just used candlelight after sunset and went to bed when it went to bed at 8:00, you wouldn't need to buy a thing. You went outside during the day, you wouldn't need to buy a thing. But it's because we have, first of all, built the physical barriers, which of course we don't want to live outside.
Yeah.
God bless civilization. But we've continued to accelerate our development of technology without taking into account its biological effect. So I did an interview with a young man who created a tablet that is like an alternative to the iPad called Daylight Computer, and he specifically created the screen so that it doesn't give off any of the blue light. Just as a side note, there is blue light outside when you go outside in the sun. However, it is balanced out by the full spectrum of the sun. It's never isolated. It's the isolated blue light that is the problem at the wrong time of day. That is the problem. Just want to say that. Sometimes people get confused. Anyway, I was talking to Anjan about, developing this computer. And as part of his research, he interviewed one of the inventors of the LCD screen. And this man said to him, if I had known that my grandchildren would be sitting in front of this thing for 7 hours a day, I would have done it very differently. Right. So we're surrounded by these screens, which are so useful in so many ways. But again, it was like someone was like, okay, look, we do this and we do that, and then it works, and then and we never changed it. And we didn't take into account to the effect that it's having on us. And we've all heard the research of the mental health crisis in our teenagers, and we've attributed it to social media. I think it's the device, not the content. Not that there's not terrible content. There
Right.
absolutely is.
Maybe both. maybe a mix, right?
Right. But like you could be conjugating Latin on your iPhone, but if it's on factory settings and it's dark outside, you're going to develop mental health issues.
Yeah. I love that example of conjugating Latin. I'm just going to be thinking about that for a while. I'm like, what are you doing with your life? Anyway, so interesting. Well, I appreciate all of this, Meredith. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. Tell me a little bit more about how you teach and how you work with people, and kind of what are you offering to help people who are trying to incorporate this wisdom in their lives?
So I have a nonprofit organization, and we teach the science of this to health practitioners, naturopaths, doctors, health coaches, chiropractors, so that they can integrate it into their practice. And we have a directory of people. And I can share the link to that, or it's on the website at qbcpod.com. And that is a directory of people where no matter what you need, whether it's you just want a health coach to help with your overall, get your lifestyle, or you need something more specific. If they're on our directory, they understand all the things I'm talking about, and they will have that integrated into what they offer you and help you to do what you need to do. My coaching background is actually in executive coaching. So I do career coaching, which is often just life coaching. People come in thinking it's career, but that's really what it is.
It's deeply interrelated. I always say if you want to become a better person, then you should start a business, because that'll expose you to all of your problems, all of the wounds, all of the
things,
all of the negativity, all of it.
Yes, that is true. So true.
Thank you. And really quick too, the conversations that you're having on your podcast, like, do you have is it just kind of it's about light and circadian rhythms, or do you branch out and talk to more guests? Like, I'm just curious.
I do have a very strong focus on light and health, and it is, we go in so many different directions. There's a lot of nervous system regulation discussion, so some of it is more, esoterically oriented, and some of it is much more, okay, how do I choose a light bulb? How does this all work? This week I have someone on who's talking about geomancy, which, he reads the energy of the earth.
So cool.
So it goes in all different directions, but it's usually in some way related to this. And I did it because I had to sift through so much difficult, inaccessible information to learn that I wanted to create a space where it was a little easier, and also fit into people's lives and fit into the larger picture of their lives.
Yeah. I love that you're hitting both kind of the practical and sort of the deep philosophical, theological aspects of everything, the esoteric side. I love that. I think that's fantastic. One last question. I don't know if this is something that you go into, but I'm curious about the difference between sunlight and also moonlight, because the sun, like, I love that it's like activating all this masculine energy in us, right? Of like, okay, it's time to wake up. It's time to do, it's time to digest. And moonlight is interesting. Usually we just talk about it in terms of it being a reflection of sunlight, but people have done studies that show that the temperature of something in moonlight is actually colder than something in shadow at night. And so I'm like, okay, there's like obviously a difference here. There's something about the moon that's also giving off something, I'm sure. And I wonder if it's related to more of our feminine things about rest and presence and all of these things and how it helps there. So I mean, I think we can all agree that we're all very deeply affected by the moon and by moonlight. At least my children are, because they all turn into werewolves. But anyway, I was just curious if you have any thoughts on that, or if you've studied that.
So I haven't studied it super deeply. However, I will say that I've talked to a couple of my colleagues about it and friends. I did a podcast recently with my friend Sarah Kleiner, and she developed an app that actually might be really helpful if people want to get into this. It's called My Circadian app. And it will geolocate you and tell you when the sun is setting, when the sun is rising. It helps you measure how bright everything is, because you want that brightness during the day. Yeah. There's a lot of connection between depression and weight gain and the lack of bright light during the morning. But she also has a moon tracker on there, which is what made me think of it. And she told me that for the first time since they've started to measure these things, women's menstrual cycles stopped being aligned with the moon cycles. And it wasn't that, all women get their period at the full moon or anything like that. It was like, but there were certain phases, like full moon and new moon, or, there was a syncing up that happened. And that, for the first time since they started measuring it, was thrown off. And it started around 2010, which is when the iPhone came out. So there's no, direct, that's just a correlated observation. But I think it's pretty profound. And then another colleague of mine, who's called Nico Kennedy, she does beautiful work with pregnancy and postpartum. She's a doula, and she's done a ton of research into the importance of circadian rhythm during pregnancy and when you have your baby. And you can actually get your baby onto a regulated rhythm through your breast milk, because the baby gets your melatonin. So again, if you're messing all that up, the baby's not getting your melatonin. So you turn on all the lights during breastfeeding time at night. That might be, affecting how everyone falls back asleep after. But anyway, she told me that she's shortened her period by doing intentional moonlight exposure and going outside and looking at the moon.
So cool.
So I would, if you want to dig into it, I would have her on. She's a wealth of wisdom on that. But yes, awesome. It's all part of the cycle. And I think it points to a bigger picture, which you talked about earlier, which is that if it's nature, it's probably supportive of our health. Right. And it's our cutting ourselves off from that.
Yeah. What a revolutionary
where you get side effects.
Yeah. It feels like that should be so obvious to us. But again, we're so far removed at this point from the way that our ancestors just lived. Right. And so, reconnecting to that might be one of the most radical, revolutionary things we can do, to just accept that if it's in nature, it's good for you. Like that's huge. Well, thank you so much, Meredith. This was such a fascinating conversation. Again, I appreciate your wisdom. Everyone go check out her podcast, qbcpod.com, the Quantum Biology Collective. Thank you. Quantum Biology Collective podcast, for more wisdom, more insights in circadian rhythm. And to me, this whole conversation is just learning to live cyclically, right? And that is, it's more feminine, it's more nuanced, there's a flow to it. It's a little bit contrary to the linear way that we are taught to live. But I think that it is more cohesive. I think it's more aligned physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, when we learn how to adapt to that and incorporate it. And obviously there are incredible benefits when we do. So thank you for coming and teaching us today.
Thanks for having me, Megan. Pleasure.
If you're ready to continue this work with guidance and shared language, I invite you into the Hidden Wisdom app, where faith is supported through renovation and expansion. If this episode resonated, please consider liking, sharing, or subscribing, especially with someone you feel would be strengthened by this conversation. You can also send a donation to Hidden Wisdom via Megan Farner on Venmo. Link is in the description. These are some of the simplest ways to support this work and help it reach those who are quietly seeking. Until next time, trust what is unfolding. There is hidden wisdom all around you.